Welcome back to another episode of the Finance Bible podcast. Zeke here.
And your co-host, Oscar. But before we get into it, please note that nothing in this podcast should ever be considered as personal financial advice.
Of course, if that is what you are seeking, reach out. We'll get you in touch with the correct professionals, get the job done properly.
Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
Let's get into it.
Also, you've got to think that participants have choice. If they don't like the property, they're not going to move into it.
Yeah,
if there's
simple.
There's people out there flogging that you can have 3 or 4 participants in one house. The houses are designed incorrectly in a lot of cases. You might get one participant, but because the participants have got choice. Now, you've got to think these participants have got a check from the government saying this is going to cover your rent. $60,000, $70,000, $80,000, $90,000 a year. Them and their carers go around looking at the houses that they want to live in. So if you had that and you had the choice, what would you want? A cheap, shitty thing, or are you going to go for the best?
Oh, you go for the best.
100%. Yeah. Because this will be their forever home. And so that's the thing that a lot of these marketers don't get. And unfortunately, some of the investors don't understand. They need to hop into our website and look at some of the videos we've got from SDA providers telling you about some of the pitfalls about SDA investing. All right? Because there's no guarantees. And anybody that tells you there's a guaranteed rent is lying to you. We're very clear there's no guarantees. There's things that you can do to minimize a lot of the situations, but there's no guarantees in SDA.
Yeah, do your research.
Yeah, as we
don't rush into it.
Do the best that you can for the participant. Chances are, keyword chances, that it will come back to you correctly.
Yeah, 100%. Have the right advisors around you that have got the participant in mind, because if they're focused on the participant, right, these companies make money by looking after the participant. But for them to make money, they need quality housing. So if you work with those sort of people rather than the marketers, these people will tell you where the houses need to go, and it will just flow on from there.
Yeah. Just build your team from the ground up, like anything.
Like any investing.
Literally anything.
Build the professionals around you that understand what's going on.
Yeah, get in contact with a professional. Let them figure out where you need to go, what research you need to do, who you need to talk to, whether it's brokers or Supavest or us or anyone 100%. Related. Even insurance companies are very important for stuff like that, because you got the building, you got the contents, you got liability, all of that. But if you don't have the right professionals and you don't have the understanding, then you're done for.
Yeah.
It's virtually impossible, which is probably the biggest limiter in why people don't know about it. Like the general population doesn't know, they don't take the steps, because how would they know? And that's why we're here.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no other platforms to really know. TV doesn't show it. Media doesn't show it. Facebook, Instagram do if the company sponsors it and promotes it. But, everyone's algorithm is different.
It is. But working with you guys, showing them what is now possible, what's legal to do with their super fund, being able to be diversified. Now, my bias is property, all right? It's like understanding the biases from the people that you're talking to. If you talk to am I for the share market? No, not really. I'm property, new property. There's other people that are just share market, but you need a mix of both to be able to assess where you want to end up. They're all good vehicles, but it's like I use an analogy like if I had a Ferrari, it's a great car, but if I wanted to go forward driving through Western Australia,
be screwed.
It's the wrong vehicle.
Good luck.
Exactly.
You can do it, it'll just be expensive. Lots of bit of damage.
Oh, just a little bit.
But it might not get you through the Nullarbor if you're going dirt roads.
Yeah.
So, like, investing's the same. Is property the best? In my opinion, yes, but it might not suit some people. Is the share market best? It's good, but does it suit everybody? Is it going to give people what they want? I'll say no, it's going to be property. But that's my bias.
Yeah, and at least you hear about that up front. But yeah, there's different ways you can use different investments to achieve your particular goal at that point in time. Anyway,
that's it, yeah.
Like, for example, the listeners, if they're frequent, will know a bit about my story from back in the day. I got into shares initially to build the capital to leverage into property, and ended up selling the shares, getting the property, and so on. So you can even do that. You can start off with the shares, go into property. But what I like about safe property is now you don't really have to go through that pain of waiting for the growth and waiting 3, 4, 5 years of consistently saving up and throwing it into the share market.
Yeah.
When you can just jump in a safe property, get the property straight away, and you're laughing. And a lot of people in superannuation, and here's going to be a fun topic.
There we go.
Like Google, in your spare time, Google how much money do I need to have a self-managed fund? Answers 100 grand, 200 grand, 300, 400, 500, up and up and up.
There's no one number.
Realistically, what your product safe property does is allow that number to come down a lot. You can open it up now, we say 100 grand, still get a good investment because you couldn't leverage into property with that.
No.
But you can get a portion of a property now. And then if they are that positively yielding, then you don't have to worry about the fees associated with the fund in terms of advisor cost and accountant fees, auditing fees. Speaking of which, we've touched on it before, but for people out there who don't know, your super fund actually charges you fees too, right? I don't know if you want to elaborate that or if you want
behind the closed door fees.
But yeah, if I do that, I might
don't
get
disclose.
a bit rolled up, so someone else take over.
Let Raymond.
There's a lot of rhetoric, you're right. And we talk to financial advisors that when you get to the back of it, they're not licensed to talk about property. They can't talk about property, and they don't, because all their money's coming out of the share market, because they get paid an annual fee, a percentage of funds under management that you've invested to manage your shares. Now that's something like having a good financial advisor. I'm not knocking them. The legislation around superannuation is very complicated. So you need professionals around you that can guide you through the process. Understanding biases is one thing, but we've got some people that say you need 500,000 in your super to be able to set up a self-managed super fund. Now, if your super fund's making at that level a couple of $1,000s a year because of fees and charges, then you're right. You can't afford to set one up because it does cost money to run a self-managed super fund. But I've heard figures of $15,000 a year to run a self-managed super fund, which is bullshit.
That's high.
What kind of super fund is that?
That's 3 different super funds.
That's it. That's it. You got to have a good quality accountant that's going to do your monthly returns or your quarterly returns and your annual return and your GST returns and your ASIC fee. Depending on who you talk to, it ranges from $2,500 to $4,000 or $5,000, depending on the accountant. If you've got a small fund, that's what I've seen. So as long as the investment is making more than that, and your investment strategy, as far as I understand, is long-term to be able to grow that, to have a portfolio of properties, then if you've got a smaller amount in your super fund, but that's the strategy that you've got long-term, what's the problem of having a smaller fund if that's the strategy? It's your money.
And even if the investment isn't necessarily covering that straight up because it cost a bit to get into initially, then your contributions should make up that difference anyway. Like if you're part of a couple earning 80 grand each a year, and you've probably got 17, 18 grand going in the fund a year. So that will still build up while the investment does its work.
That's it. That's it.
And with industry funds, it's funny because the higher your balance is, the higher the fees are, because it's a percentage-based fee.
That's it.
So generally speaking, when we speak to clients, we sometimes say, well, pending at the time, roughly around 200 becomes more expensive as opposed to a self-managed fund due to the fixed fee.
Yeah.
So if you see your balance rising, it may be appropriate to speak to someone to figure out the fees you're actually spending behind closed doors.
Yeah.
Because you don't really see until you really do the research of the money that you're spending per year and how much you can actually save.
And the other consideration is, even if the fee is a bit higher, if you're a lower balance, then is your investment return going to be higher? Because if it is, you can balance it out and or increase it. But
see, part of that also, the rhetoric around self-managed super fund and industry super funds is that the industry super funds and the market outperforms self-managed super funds. There's some reports coming out of South Adelaide University that actually go against that, and they've actually analysed. They did it 360,000 self-managed super funds, and they actually found that those self-managed super funds outperform the industry super funds by a few percent. Now, that's a big sample. That's over half the SMSF base across Australia that they sampled last year.
Yeah, it's a hefty amount.
It's a solid. But the other side of it is, you're looking at the discussion and rhetoric that's going around at the moment, is that it's compared, when people talk about investing in property, they're talking about investing in real estate as in buying established properties that they've done over the last 10 or 15 years. Now, even if you're getting into commercial, a lot of the commercials at the moment are still, commercial properties, they're still making 5, early 6s as returns. And they say that's a good return, but you're still buying an established property. What's happened over the last 3 years with Supavest is we've changed the narrative, because we're now building or allowing people to build high cash flow properties. So not your average negative geared neutrally returns. People are building dual keys, duplexes, triplexes, doing subdivisions. They're building NDIS. They're building co-living. They're building high cash flow properties inside their super fund, and the returns on these are so much better than buying an established property. So over the next 3 to 5 years, the rhetoric about real estate doesn't perform as well is going to be hard to justify, because these people are building properties that are returning north of 7%, plus the capital growth that comes along with building a brand new property as well.
And the barrier of entry is, a lot smaller than it is to buy an actual established property itself.
And even if they're buying a safe property, they're buying a quality high cash flow property. They might be only buying 5% of it or 10% of it, but they're getting the capital growth on a quality product, and they're getting up to an 11% return paid to them monthly. Now, you put all of that into the mix about the rhetoric about established properties versus the market. Now, it's starting to change the game a little bit.
Going back to the study, talking about self-managed versus industry and the difference in return, it'd be very interesting to see as well in the self-managed area, how many of them don't have financial planners on them, or how many of them aren't invested, or what they're invested in. Because I've met hundreds of clients, some already with a fund set up, that just don't have it invested. So they've got just 300 grand just sitting in cash, and it's actually losing money each year.
Yeah.
Or I see them with it invested, and I'd go as far as saying it's actually not invested. What's the opposite of invested? Spent. it's going down.
I guess.
Yeah, it's going downhill drastically, just terrible decisions being made. If you actually took every self-managed fund with a financial planner on it, with the money invested, and compared that to an industry fund, I'm going to toss a coin here, but I'm going to say it's outperforming the industry funds
100%
every time.
Yeah.
One particular client, and I'm going to air the laundry here, they made last year on their tax return, from what we've done, they actually had a gross profit of 180 grand in their fund, and they've probably actually only got an overall asset value of about 700k.
Wow.
So for them to make that, and that's not going to happen every year, and it's an outrageous figure. But if you compare just that one particular year to any industry fund, do the math.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But that's also hands-on, caring about your clients. They're just not a number.
Exactly. A lot of other companies, as you were saying before, are just, let's get the sale. Don't worry about it.
That's it.
And it's a game changer. It goes a long way looking after people.
Yeah.
Instead of just doing a one-off, here's your fund, here's your property, here's this.
See you later.
Yeah.
It's actually consistently meeting with them, having the actual, how can I say it, having the balls, I'll say, to show up every 6 months, 12 months. Yeah, how can I say it? Just say it the way it is. To meet the client and continue with the service. If we were doing a poor job, we wouldn't be coming back to meet them and getting in front of them and sitting down and going, oh, this is how your fund's performing, or this is how your investment is going. You just get slapped and that's it, game over. Bad review. But
it's amazing sitting down with people and working out their personal, professional, financial goals and setting down a strategy about how they can get them. But not only just an airy-fairy pie-in-the-sky sort of stuff. It's like sitting down with them and saying, okay, these are the strategies and this is what we're going to be measured on to actually get you there.
Yeah, what amazes me is when you sit down with them, probably 90% of the clients we see have never even thought about it. Never even sat down and thought about what they want to achieve in retirement, how much money they want to live off, what do they want to do.
But you know why they
travel,
don't do that?
etc.
Because the government has educated us not to think about that. Because why? Because there hasn't been an alternative up until now.
Super, just to look after you in the future. That's what they think.
Yeah, just do the hand symbol. That's enough said.
Go to school, go to uni, get a job.
That's it.
Pay off your house and super retire. Happy days. But it's not enough these days.
No.
We're screwed.
No. But see, that's the whole rhetoric about our education system and the propaganda that's been put out about desensitizing people to their long term and where they're going to be ending up in retirement. Because
oh yes,
just say it. Just say it. Yeah, it'll be all right.
They want to keep people dumb. Because as soon as they start letting people open up their eyes and see how hard off they've got it, how much more problems are the government going to have?
Oh yeah,
when people start really understanding how screwed they are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
because hey, as a son watching his dad retire and double dip tea bags and double use tea bags, and then stress in the last months of his life to worry about how he's going to look after his wife. How the flip do you get to 80 years old and be in that position in Australia? Because we're educated to stay dumb about our finances.
And not think about it.
We need to be out there pounding the ground, telling people, look at you're 20 years old, look at your super. What are you being charged? Where's it being invested? Where do you want to end up in 45, 50 years' time? Start thinking about it today. Like you don't like talking about building houses. You would think a builder was crazy if you said, I've just bought a block of land across the road. Can you start building me a house? And he said, yeah, give me a minute. I'll get a backhoe. You start digging the ground. What are you building? I don't know. I'm just going to start building. It's like, mate, no builder worth his salt. No builder. Every single builder, no matter how bad they are, they've got a set of plans. They know exactly what that house is going to look like by the time it's finished.
Mm-hmm.
They won't start work on it until they know that. But yet, as Australians, we'll work for 45 years not knowing how we're going to end up because we've been educated not to think about it.
Yeah.
And like podcasts like this and discussions like this are starting to get people to thinking, like slap them around the head, wake up. Like it's your money. Take control of it. Stop giving it to other people. Like you've spent your hard-earned dollars and time working to earn the money. You should control the money. Don't give it to someone else to think they're going to look after it. They're going to look after themselves.
Yeah, it's their best interest to look after themselves.
100%. And like that's no different to me. Like I'm in business to make money, but it's your money. You're controlling it. I've just got a solution to be able to help you use it the best way I believe is possible inside a self-managed super fund.
Yeah, if you have no idea, speak to professionals like yourself, like us,
100%.
Other professional associates, like people who are out there to help you and to actually guide you to the goals you want to achieve.
Yeah, and don't be like a typical Australian. Be too proud to actually put your hand up and say,
"Yeah,
I'm a bit dumb in this area. I need some help." It's finances. Everybody's going through it. Everybody's going through some hard time. I don't care what they're putting on Facebook and what sort of lifestyle they're showing they're actually living. If you go behind the set up pictures that people are posting across the social media and actually look at their real lives that they're living, they're leading. What's the terminology? They're leading lives of quiet desperation, and they're sinking. By the time they're 65, 67, they're nearly drowned because they haven't taken control of their money.
I think a big problem is growing up, and especially now, a lot of families do not speak about money. It's rude to talk about money. It's rude to ask people about money or what they do for investing. But it's not. I feel like it's getting more popular now, but still a large chunk of the population don't ask anything or just too scared to talk about it because they just think they don't want to think about it because they don't know about it.
Yeah.
And they're scared. Subconsciously, they'd be nervous.
Yeah.
Like, I love the dinner table chatter now. Like if me and my mates go out for dinner or something, I'll bring it up and I'll talk to them about their money.
It's like that.
A lot of my mates are miners. They're earning good money. And I'm like, oh, so what are you doing with it? And they're like, what do you mean? Like, why are you asking me that at dinner? You can't bring that up.
Yeah,
like,
exactly right.
We're going to have a conversation right now. Yeah. And everyone's like, no, you can't be doing that.
Yeah, how long will you be making this money for? Like, you're on a good income. You do something with it.
Yeah.
One thing that amazes me, like completely shocks me, every time I hear it, is how loyal people are to their super fund. Like, people think that their super's like heaps loyal to them, and they've been investing my money for like 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. I've been with them for 30 years. They've done a good job. Well,
that's actually very true.
yeah, like, what do you mean?
So true.
Like, you're telling me you don't want to leave them and go and make money here and buy property and do this or whatever because they've been looking after your money for 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
In that 30 years, how much have you paid in fees? Well, let's have a look. 120 grand in this specific example that I'm talking about. Like, that money could be going to other things. 30 years of getting ripped off, and they're loyal. They won't leave.
Yeah, but that's the rhetoric and the education that we've been fed over the years.
Yeah.
It's like, loyalty in business is few and far between now, unfortunately. Like the businesses that, industry super funds, yeah.
Leave it at us.
But I pay for personal mentoring with some fairly wealthy people. And I know for me to sit down in front of them, like I did a couple of weeks ago, I flew to the States and met one of my mentors. It's still uncomfortable for me sitting down and talking to him about my personal, professional and financial goals and where I am financially. Because I know in the last 4 months that I didn't hit the marks that I was looking for, and I was going to have to sit down
and you knew the chat was coming.
And I knew the chat was coming.
But it's got to be done.
It's uncomfortable.
And I saw one of your posts, I think it was today, you got to be comfortable with being uncomfortable.
One of my favourite quotes, actually.
Which I love it. Yeah. Which is so true.
But we get taught total opposite. You got to be comfortable. You got to have a good lifestyle. Yeah. When do you get better? Like if you look at a baby when
There's
they start
growth
to walk,
if you're comfortable.
No, a baby when they're starting to walk, how many times do they fall down and hurt themselves? What do? No, stop, Johnny. It's been 10 times.
Yeah,
stop.
Stay down.
Stay down. You finished. You can't do it anymore.
Don't
walk anymore.
Yeah.
It's like done. It's like I've lost everything in my life in one time. It was painful as shit. It was painful. But it's like you get back up. You lose some money. You make some money. It's money. The only thing that we haven't got that we can't replace is time. Money comes and goes. The money that you make, if you're investing it in, I'm going to say an industry super fund, and you could be taking that money and putting it elsewhere in a self-managed super fund and gets you better return, why wouldn't you do it? Because the time that you've got is limited. There's nothing you or I can do that's going to give us a second more in life. But there's lots of stuff we can do that can multiply our dollars while we're here. But then at the end of it, when we get to retirement, we pass away, how are we going to change the lives of our next generation, of my kids or your grandkids? If it's in an industry super fund, if you look at the norm, by the time you die, you've basically spent all your money. There's not much left over to give to your kids or your grandkids. Now, if you've changed that and put it into high cash flow properties and built properties and lived off the rental income in your retirement, and the great thing about rental income, what happens to rents every year? They go up.
Go up.
So as lifestyle expenses increase, your rent's increasing, so your standard of living stays relatively the same year on year. But because you're not chewing into your capital, when you finally pass, you're leaving fully paid off assets to your kids or your grandkids. Yep. So you're now starting to change generational wealth. And while, like, compared to my dad, when you retire and you've got cash flow income and you can enjoy your life and you've got your kids or your grandkids around you and you can start enjoying lifestyle with them and you can start passing some of your knowledge onto your kids because you're spending time with them, when you pass, you've educated some financial intelligence into them so they can actually manage that inheritance properly, rather than leaving them nothing or very little, but not actually educating them financially along the way. So
I always joke with Oscar when he has children. The topics.
How comes that?
Not for a while. I feel like Zeke wants it more than me.
It's not a stopwatch, I'll tell you that much. Him sitting there at dinner, his little child is like 3 years old, and we're to feed him. What are you doing with money? What's going on?
Start investing.
Yeah, get into it now. What do you know?
Well,
what compound you're in?
You compound pretty nicely from 3.
Yeah, you 100%. You'd be
Don't worry about reading books while they're in the cot. You're like Audible.
Yeah.
headphones on.
Just listen.
Just listen.
Oh.
They can sleep to the same book on repeat for like a year. They'll know it.
Start with Rich Dad, Poor Dad. You're happy.
Yeah. But the other thing people need to understand is if you're the average person, probably in our experience, reaches out to us at like 45, 50, give or take. So if they want to retire at 60, they've got 15, 10 years to then fund the next 30, 40 years of their life. That concept in itself should be enough to get people thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah, like if you've got to work for 10 years and then fund 30, 40 years from that, how do you do it?
Yeah.
And that's why you got to start thinking early, or you need to start taking the steps to actually compound wealth.
And that's where the high cash flow properties come in, because you're starting to compound the investments. Like if you've got an industry super fund and you've got $400,000 in there, right, and you're 45, what can you do to turn that into $1.2 million tomorrow?
Just hope the high growth pays off.
Yeah, but see, if that's in an industry super fund.
Yeah, it's not much
if you
else.
now today set up a self-managed super fund and turn that $400,000 into building a property that's now worth $1.2 million or 1.6 probably. Today, you've turned the 400 and leveraged it through debt into 1.6 million that you've now invested into an asset that's now going to appreciate on a $1.6 million base, not a $400,000 base. Yeah, you're paying interest, but because the property is making a positive cash return, the interest is covered. So now you're actually growing on a $1.6 million base. So if they only buy one property and they leverage that 400 into a $1.6 million property. Now, if they think about it, if you go to a bank and say, bank, I own $400,000 of your shares and I want to buy more of your shares, how much are they going to lend you against that $400,000? Maximum 50% under a margin loan. So you could take that 400 and turn it into 600 through debt. But now you've got $200,000 for the borrowing that you've somehow got to fund, because the shares aren't going to pay you every month to actually repay that loan. But all that equivalent, that's what the bank thinks about their own shares and how secure they think their shares are. But you can now take that 400 and borrow $800,000 against the $1.6 million property, and the bank's going to give you that money. So which asset are the banks telling you are safer investments to invest your money?
That is a good point.
And for those of whom don't understand that, go back and listen to the episode on leveraging. We'll drop the link to that in. But we actually explore that exact topic.
Beautiful.
Comparing
power of
property
leverage
to shares and leveraging and all of that. So it's an interesting one. But
doing that in your superannuation, if you've got 15 years, look at the rich people around the world. How do they get wealthy? They leverage.
Yeah.
They leverage the crap out of everything, and they use other people's money to make money.
And your super's just sitting there. If you're retiring in 15, 20 years, like, you're not using your super anyway. You may as well put it towards an actual physical asset.
Yeah, you don't feel the pain of making
it. It's not impacting your personal financials. It's let it do its job. And when you hit retirement age, I'm pretty sure you'll be pretty happy about your choice.
I'll give you an example. You could have invested 10, 12 years ago in a certain company, in a big Australian company that had a good share market rating, and the CEO came in and downgraded a whole lot of stuff and moved some stuff offshore and changed the maintenance schedules and everything else to maximize profits in this company.
Mm-hmm.
And that CEO left with a great profit, but the company itself was in shambles and the reputation of the company was down. And because they'd pushed out major billions of dollars worth of asset purchases to after that CEO left and now left for the next CEO, there's going to be a big turmoil over the next number of years in that company. It's a publicly listed company. Because of the management of that company, your shares then suffer. If you've now got that amount of money into a property that you control, if you don't like the management or the property managers that are managing that property, guess what? You can sack them. if you've got your money in this publicly listed company and you don't like what the company's doing, you can pull the money out. But where are you going to put it into another company that does the same thing? But if you own the asset, you can sack your accountant. You can put another accountant in. You can
choose what you want to do.
You can choose your advisors, but you own the asset.
Yeah.
Like you have control. That if you don't like the bank, get another bank and refinance. It's like, it's your money. You've got control when it's in a self-managed super fund. But if it's in the industry super fund, you're literally giving your money over and lending it to another company that you have got no idea who the management are and what the board of directors sitting up in their high towers, what their plans are for that company. Because, again, the reason the directors and CEOs are in those companies is, they might have altruistic views, but they're in it to make money for themselves. And if they need to push out expenses for 10 years to be able to make the bottom line look really good because their CEO pay packet's based on the profit, they'll do it.
Yeah, they will.
They'll leave, take their big pay packet, and then leave you, the shareholder, with the aftermath. Mm-hmm. You've got no control of that. But when it's your property, you've got total control. You might think I'm a bit of a control freak.
No, I love it.
That's a good one.
I think it's great.
That probably sums up about an hour of excellence, I'll call it. Anyone out there that wants to get in touch with you or learn more about the product or Supavest, the company, how is the best way to actually do that?
Just hop onto the website, Supavest. That's supavest.com. There's some links in there. There's some blogs. There's some information. You can just get educated, get knowledgeable about what you can do, and then start talking to these guys.
Brilliant. So, we'll also drop a link to the actual website in the notes and or the Instagram page too.
Yeah, we'll pop everything in there.
And then you guys can go on there and find it and educate yourself some more.
Thank you very much.
It's been a pleasure. Well, it's been a pleasure.
It has been a pleasure.
We'll have to do a part 2 of this at some point because there's more to talk about. To the listeners, we'll catch you next time.
Goodbye. Ciao.
We hope you enjoyed the episode. As always, you know exactly what to do.
Hit that follow button, subscribe, whatever platform you listen to this podcast on. Also share it to your friends, family, co-workers, whoever you think may benefit from it. But unfortunately, it's the end and we'll see you next week.